Village. I'd like to welcome you tonight. This is a community service project which our branch has been sponsoring for several years. I'd like to thank you for your attendance. Our candidate coordinator tonight is Judy Pearman.
I'm not sure if you can, if I should take the mask down or leave it on. Yes? Since I'm the only one using this microphone, I think we'll be okay. You'll be using the microphone up there. And do we have a way of cleaning that off, the microphone? Our AMS. All right, the format of the program we will be telling you as soon as we do some introductions. First of all, the people who have been on the council and are on the council, I would like to introduce them. If you would just stand where you are, Daryl Aubrey. Susan Bickle. Mark Mullenix. Okay. David Norris. Deborah Searcy. And our village manager, Andy Lukasik. Where is he? And the last on the people who are leading the charge in our village is village clerk, who is going to be telling us about the election. And so Jessica Green will tell us about the election.
Good evening. I hope you can hear me okay with this mask. Would you like me to? Okay, can you hear me better? Okay, good evening and welcome. I want to thank Judy Pearman and the American Association of University Women for sponsoring and hosting this event, as well as past events over the last, Meet the Candidate events over the last several years. Just to give you a little information about the upcoming election, our village municipal election will be held Tuesday, March 9th. The polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. This year, we have 2 seats on the Village Council up for election, Groups 2 and 4. Our qualified candidates in Group 2 are incumbent Susan Tiedemann Bickle and Colby Briggs. Our qualified candidates in Group 4 are John Furking and incumbent David Norris. Contact information for the candidates and copies of sample ballots are on the table as you came in the foyer. There's also a printed handout from the Supervisor of Elections office with important dates, deadlines, and vote-by-mail information. For vote-by-mail ballots, they are only available through the Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections office and cannot be dropped off at polling locations. Vote-by-mail ballots are only accepted at the Supervisor of Elections main office or one of their branch offices. The deadline to drop off a vote-by-mail ballot is Election Day by 7 p.m. at the main office or by 5 p.m. at a branch office. Also for municipal elections, there is no early voting, just so you're aware. If you choose to vote in person, you must vote in the precinct where you live and in that precinct's designated polling location. You will need to bring a current and valid photo identification with a signature, and approved forms of ID are listed on the Florida Division of Elections website. If you're not sure where to vote, you can find out by calling the clerk's office or going online to the Supervisor of Elections website, typing your address into the precinct finder, checking your voter registration card. Lastly, I want to remind our candidates and citizens that Florida statute prohibits candidates from soliciting or accepting contributions in a building owned by a governmental entity, which includes the building we're in tonight. And I want to thank you, candidates, for your willingness to serve the Village of North Palm Beach. Thank you.
been introduced to the names, at least, of the candidates. But now we are going to hear from the candidates. I had given them a letter, and I'll read to you the letter. Thank you for accepting the challenge to run for our village council. In round 1, you will each have up to 5 minutes to formally introduce yourself. In round 2, another 5 minutes to tell about your goals for the village. Now, how are we going to find out who's up for 5 minutes? Our AAUW president is sitting there, and she will have a stopwatch, and because we only have an hour. And so show them the one that you have, 1 minute. Show the 1 minute. Okay. And then show them when they have to stop. That's show us also the stop sign. Okay. That would be 20 minutes for the first round and 20 minutes for the second round. In the second round, they will tell about their goals for the village. And then, after all of this second round, we'll have questions, and we have a lot of questions up here. However, many of the questions are concerning the same thing, so I will try to include all of your questions in one way or another. So bear with me on that. So after they finish their second round, they'll have questions, and some of them are for specific candidates, and we'll try to make sure that all of the candidates have a chance to answer. But those will be no more than a 3-minute answer. Okay? Is that all right with you, candidates? Okay, very good. Who wants to go first? Well, let's see. On the group 2, Susan Tiedemann Bickel.
Thank you. So I guess it's okay if I pull down my mask? Colby, you'll be after me. Is that okay with you? Okay, perfect. Thank you. My name is Susan Tiedemann Bickel, and I'm running for seat 2, as I'm sure you know. As you probably know by now, I was born and raised in North Palm Beach. I grew up with my family on Kingfish and Anchorage. My mom moved to Riverside after my father died. The first house I purchased on my own was on Fire Tree behind St. Clair's. When I was at Fire Tree, I met my husband, Jeff, who I'll talk about more in a minute. And he convinced me to move into his house in Steeplechase, and I hated it. I hated Steeplechase. There was no sense of community, no sense of neighborhood, and I begged him to move back to North Palm with me. He started to agree to look at houses with me, and on Halloween night, we went to Oyster Road to look at a house, and he saw all of the kids walking around the neighborhood and said, "Oh, this is what you mean, and this is what you want." And I said, "Yes, this is what I want." And he agreed to move back to North Palm with me for that reason. My husband, Jeff, is a boat captain. We've been married for 15 years. We have 2 older children. My daughter is a local veterinarian, my older daughter. My older son is at Oracle in D.C. They both went to St. Clair's, so they're products of the local system. My 14-year-old is currently at the Dreyfus School of the Arts, but she went to the Conservatory School and to Benjamin. As you probably know, I'm a teacher at the Benjamin School. Not only am I a teacher, I'm the science department chair and the science coordinator. I'm also on the governing board of the American Association of Chemistry Teachers, and in fact won Chemistry Teacher of the Year last year by the American Chemical Society. I also have a little bit of international experience. I was on the International Steering Committee of a conservation group, the Turtle Survival Alliance. I originally decided to join the Planning Commission about 10 years ago because I was really interested in the future of North Palm, and I served on the Planning Commission for 4 years. At the time, we were talking about the NBOS, the North Lake Boulevard Overlay Zoning District, lots of jargon, but I learned an amazing amount about what planning and zoning can do for a community, and I think that experience is invaluable. One of my last votes on the Planning Commission was on the memory care facility that at the time was proposed for Prosperity Farms between North and South Pepperwood. I voted against that. I opposed it because I thought it was unfair to rezone a residential neighborhood for more commercial high-density use. I didn't care about the memory facility so much. I actually think that's a good use for land. But I didn't think it was fair to take a residential piece of property and rezone it. And that was when I decided to run for council, because I realized I could have a much bigger impact in protecting North Palm on the council than I could on the Planning Commission. But I am so grateful for what I learned on the Planning Commission. So, as a lifelong resident, it's important to me to maintain the history, character, and charm of North Palm as we move into the future. Clearly, we are moving into the future. Everybody is. But North Palm is incredibly important to me as a lifelong resident, and I want to make sure that we don't lose sight of what's important to the residents as we embrace the future. I do believe I have a unique perspective to offer, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Next for Group 2 is Colby Briggs.
Good evening. As you know, my name's, can you hear me all right? Yeah. My name's Colby Briggs. I'm originally from Michigan, from a little town called Bad Axe. A lot of people make fun of that, but it is called Bad Axe. Grew up there, born and raised in the restaurant business. My grandparents had an old school A&W, so I'd like to say I learned my work ethic from them at a young age, driving, riding my bicycle out before school to go cook breakfast for the teachers that were going to teach me later in the day at her restaurant. And that was my life. It was either sports or work. That was my dad's rule. If you don't play sport, you're working. So did that, went through high school, decided to go to culinary school, and that's what brought me to Florida. I've been here since 1999. I went to Florida Culinary Institute. My second semester in culinary school, I was fortunate enough for one of my instructors to come to me and say, you have a talent, you need to pursue this, and we usually don't offer this position to students. And that was a private chef job, and for this area is it's a great job to have, and it's hard to get into. With that being said, I've been in this service industry for 21 years in private households. I feel that that's given me a lot of management skills in dealing with all different types of people, attitudes, staff, situations that come up on the fly, and you just don't know what's going to happen day to day, and that's what I love about my job. When I came back, I left for a few years and came back and met my lovely wife, Alex, who's sitting back there. And when we met, she lived in North Palm on Yacht Club, and I wanted to live out in the farms, and she said, no. She said, we're living in North Palm, and I didn't get why, and she got her wish, and I'm glad she did. It took us 3 years to find a house, and I lived just down the street from Susan, and same thing, I walked in that house, she was at work, and I called her, I said, you need to leave right now and come here, and we put the offer in that day, and we've been there ever since. So we've been here for 8 years. If we wouldn't have wasted those 3, or not waste, but found the right home, we would be 11. We have one daughter, Anna, who goes to St. Clair. She's been there since she was 3 years old. We love it. The community, we know, everyone knows everyone, and that's the way it was back home for me. You knew everyone on a first name basis, and that's what I really like about North Palm. One thing I do need to clear up, and there's a lot of speculation going around of why I'm running. I do work for a gentleman by the name of Mike Bizzuto, who lives right here in Harbor Isles. He is a great person. His interests have nothing to do with why I'm running. He's got his own money, his own people. He doesn't need me to do anything for him. Even if I was running for him, I would have to recuse myself from anything to do with him, any voting, any change. It's just not why I'm doing this. I talked about running about 3.5 years ago, when the boat and RV issue came up. And John and I have been on the front fighting this from the very beginning. So I'd like to put that to rest of why I'm doing this. It has no bearing at all of why I want to make this village a better place. And I hope that's enough information about me. If you need to know more, I'm happy to answer more questions. Thank you.
And those are your candidates for Group 2. Now we'll go to Group 4, and David Norris.
Good evening. Nice to see everybody. It's great to have it in our beautiful community center. I want to thank Judy, first of all, and your group for putting this on. It's wonderful to have these types of events for our village. I think it means a lot for the residents to be able to hear the candidates speak and get a feel for what they're like. So, as you know, I'm David Norris. I live in North Palm Beach, of course. I'm married. My wife, Wendy, is over here to my right. I have two wonderful children that have grown up in North Palm Beach. Taylor, my daughter, is over here and actually is working in my law firm here in North Palm Beach. And my son is an accountant, so he couldn't be here because those of you that are in accounting, it's tax season. So, but he's an accountant and actually works for a firm right here in North Palm Beach as well. I grew up here in North Palm. I went to elementary school at North Palm Beach Elementary, went to Hal Watkins Junior High, graduated from Suncoast High School. Wasn't quite the academic place that it is now back then, but I did okay. And then I went to University of Florida and graduated with an accounting degree, an undergraduate, and law degree. So I'm a double Gator for any other Gators out there. I am an attorney in town here. I've been practicing for 38 years. 34 of them have been right here in North Palm Beach on US 1. I'm managing partner of our law firm, and we have 20 attorneys, over 60 employees right here servicing people in the north end out of North Palm Beach. I'm actually one of the owners of our building there on 712 US 1, so I'm right in the middle, right part of the business community, and right in the middle of the business regions as a property owner, so I'm familiar with all of the issues surrounding that. I moved to North Palm Beach in 1968, but for a few years around my college career, I've lived here. So I grew up on Cruiser Road South. Wendy and I bought our first house in North Palm Beach on Privateer Road, lived there for 13 years. We loved that house. We now live on Davitt Drive, and we love that neighborhood as well. I'm originally born in Indiana, but moved to Florida when I was 3, so I'm really a Floridian. Why am I running? Why am I running again? Same reason I ran the first time. You hear about my growing up in North Palm. I love North Palm Beach. I think it's a saying, but it is true. It is the best place to live under the sun. I think I wanted to be involved. I saw some things that I thought could be improved. Main thing back then was the country club, and I thought that I had some talents that maybe would help make that happen and would make North Palm Beach even better. So I've been on for quite a while, as you all know, but I love it. I love being involved. I think I do a decent job. I think over my tenure we've done an awful lot. We've pretty much touched upon every facility that that the village owns. We've built the public safety building. We've built the community center fields, concession stand at Anchorage Park, and of course the country club, which is, I think hopefully everybody agrees, is incredible. So we took what we had, which was great while it lasted, and turned it into a world-class facility. I'm proud of what we've accomplished. I'm endorsed by the Palm Beach County Police Benevolent Association, the Professional Firefighters, Paramedics of Palm Beach County, North PAC, and the Palm Beach County Human Rights Council. So thank you.
Group 4, John Frerking.
It's a relief to be able to come up here and take my mask off. When I heard round 1 and round 2, I thought it was going to be a more exciting evening, David. My name is John Ferking, F-R-E-R-K-I-N-G, and that's a German-French combination, and somewhere they stopped making war and started making love, and that's where I came from. I am here tonight with my beautiful wife, Eileen. We've been together 51 years, but no, 61 years, and she was my college sweetheart on the first day I got to college, but she was a cheerleader, and so I didn't have much chance to do anything else. We have 3 children. My son Carl is a graduate of the Air Force Academy. He spent 22 years in the service and retired as a light colonel and now flies for Delta Airlines. My youngest daughter, Melissa, lives in Kansas City, and she's an administrator for Children's Hospital in Kansas City. And my daughter, who lives here locally, Elizabeth, is a pediatric physical therapist, and she operates Young Body Rehab on North Lake Boulevard, and she promised that if I mentioned that, she would bake me a cake. I have lived in the village for 50 years, came here in 1970. I'm originally from Charlotte, North Carolina. And my education, basically, I have a Bachelor of Arts in English Literature, but a master's degree in Divinity, which simply means that we are trained to understand that all people are children of God, they're precious in God's sight, and that every individual is important, and every individual is one whom we should love and we should help and assist. And so my whole life has been dedicated to helping people, making a difference in people's lives. And I've done that from starting a new Head Start school in Belle Glade to bringing into our community people who have come out of war-torn countries and would like to breathe the air of freedom. We brought 200 refugees into Palm Beach County from all over the world. My political experience is I've served on local, state, and national boards. And Lutheran Services of Florida, I was chairman of the board at a time when we were facing bankruptcy. We had 600 employees. I was able to get them through that. We lost 1 employee. We never missed a payroll. So I know a lot about business, and I know a lot about government contracts and how that needs to be handled. I have decided to run because I believe I have knowledge and I have wide experience, and that I believe I can better represent the people of the village. Some of the council's actions and some of the council's inactions have concerned me. I knew some time ago that there were some problems in our village when I saw that the local police and the firefighters were not being paid an adequate wage. In fact, they were on the bottom of the scale in Palm Beach County. And I asked myself, how did that happen? How possibly could our police and firefighters who are in the forefront of safety be allowed to be at the bottom of the pay scale? And I knew we had a problem. Somebody's not paying attention. From there, it went on to other concerns that I had, chiefly the reduction of lanes on US 1. I think that should be an item that needs to be discussed by the people of this village. I think the design needs to be seen by the people of this village. I think it needs to be mailed to every resident along with questions and answers. And I think the residents of this village ought to have a chance to go to the ballot box and vote it up or down. 5 people cannot decide what's going to happen here with 13,000 residents. You get one shot at this. It's like jumping out of an airplane. You got to do it right the first time. And I believe this is a decision for the people of the village. Other thing is term limits. I'm very much concerned about the fact that without term limits, we're not getting the kind of enthusiasm and fresh energy that is needed in a village. Thomas Jefferson said that the rotation of citizens on and off local government is so important that without that, there's a certain sense of absolutism and rigidity that sets in. And it also brings about the fact that you begin to attract the voters to you that you want, rather than having the people vote the people that they want in with their fresh ideas, their new experiences, and this type of thing. Am I done?
Round one is done. All right, with round one, you've seen the caliber of people that we have who would like to represent you in the village. And now we'll see what they would like to really do in the village to make it an even better place to live under the sun. And I guess we'll start right around as we did before. And so Susan Bickle will tell us about the biggest issue facing the council and lots of different things that she would do again if she was re-elected. Susan.
So, as I mentioned before, I've served the village in two capacities, both as a member of the Planning Commission and a council member. I've been actively involved in North Palm for over 10 years, and we do have a number of issues that we need to discuss. I would be remiss if I didn't mention COVID. This is something that is on everybody's mind. You know, the country is facing it, we are facing it. It's impacted families and individuals, businesses large and small. Although I haven't made much headway, I do want people to know that I have been pushing hard to get vaccines into North Palm. I've made sure that our fire department has what they need when and if we do get those vaccines from the county and the state. So we are ready to go. We are waiting on larger bodies than us to decide. And I wanted to make sure that residents heard that we have made those plans so that if we are lucky enough to get vaccines, we are ready. I'll mention at this point that both the police and the firefighter paramedics have endorsed my candidacy, and I'm incredibly grateful that they trust my leadership during this unprecedented time. My biggest long-term overarching issue may surprise you, and that's the concept of home rule, which you may not have heard much about yet. There have been a number of instances over the past several years where our state and national legislatures have taken away our ability to regulate local concerns. This has occurred on everything from sober homes, to cell phone towers, to tree trimming, to fireworks, to environmental regulations. Our state legislature is currently considering a bill that would take away our ability to regulate short-term rentals and home businesses. I know many residents, including me, are concerned about more immediate topics, but I do want to put this on everyone's radar, that there are things that we are not allowed to do because of what the state and national legislatures have passed, and I think it's important that we keep our eyes on those topics, and I intend to do so as if I'm lucky enough to be elected to council again. As far as immediate issues, we have a number that we need to talk about and come together as a community. US 1 is definitely on my mind because I know residents are split. I've been walking streets, I've been taking phone calls and answering emails for well over a year, and I've heard both sides. Our community is split over this issue. I think it's incredibly important that we involve as many residents as possible in the determination of what happens with US 1. Despite what you may have heard, no decisions have been made and will not be made without a lot more information and resident input. All of us need to weigh the pros and the cons of that decision and hear from the residents. I think that's important to be said out loud. We are working on a recreation needs assessment, and I also think we need to work on adding to our recreation offerings and our parks based on resident input. So along those two lines, I've heard loudly and clearly that we need to improve communication significantly. I know residents like the Village newsletter, I do too, actually, but we need to have more immediate channels of information, such as a regularly updated website. I intend to make sure that we end, if I'm reelected, that we end any confusion and misinformation, and that all residents have not only up-to-date information, but also a clear channel to communicate with council. I think sometimes we forget, I know I do, you that our elected officials are our friends and neighbors. I mean, I live right down the street from most of you, from number. It's easy. And I'm always happy to speak with anyone who has a question or a concern. It's important that we remember that we are all community members. We may disagree slightly on the path that we need to take, but we all want the same thing, which is North Palm Beach to remain the best place under the sun.
Can he go ahead and speak anyway? Okay. Mr. Riggs.
That's like a stall in the fourth quarter with 10 seconds, right? Right there. All right, the reason I'm running is one, I feel like some of the issues that are coming up or trying to be passed are putting us down the road for similar to an HOA. Number one being, the boat and RV regulation. Now, they've done a great job, on this last passing, but there's still a separation between an RV that's 10 feet and a boat that's can be 12 feet in height. What's the difference of 2 feet for an RV versus a boat? And they're going to include, the 5 feet on a trailer, but they won't give us 5 more feet on an RV. It should be the same all the way around. There's not that big of a difference in my opinion if my RV or someone's RV or whatever is 5 feet longer than what you can see or driving by. But I agree, we've come a long ways from 3 years ago. The US 1, I've seen some of the plans. I guess there's 4 different plans that are out there. We've seen one. I really feel that needs to, like John said, just like you did with the master plan, have a community outreach and program on that would be good. And I know we got a long ways to go there, but I'm against it. Some of the reasons why would be the buildings. They're talking about putting all the parking behind the existing buildings or knocking down in buildings so all the parking is behind. On North Lake, where I think it's BurgerFi and Sleep Number and all of that, the way I was raised in the restaurant business is you drive by and you see cars, you kind of make your opinion on the facility or the restaurant or whatever may be there by traffic. If there's no traffic, you can't see anything. If someone's there, I know for myself, I'm a lot less likely to go there. Susan talked about better communication. I think all of us agree that needs to happen. We talked about doing town halls possibly if I'm elected, try to do at least one a month like this, come out and just listen. Not that we need to respond, but just listen and know what's on everyone's mind. I don't think the 3 minutes at a podium, at the chambers gives us the opportunity as citizens and residents to really speak the way that we feel and get our point across. The lakeside park down there, after the last storm came through, that park is so hot. My daughter that used to be here, it was the Blue Park is what she called it, to go down there. There's no shade down there anymore. We need to bring that back for the community, and I know you can't regulate that because of the grant that was taken, but there has to be a way around it to clean it up and try to eliminate some of the trouble that's going on down there and how packed it is. I mean, if you go down there, there's no parking. They got cones everywhere on the street from people that aren't residents in North Palm. Not that we don't want to open our doors to people, but there has to be a way to accommodate the residents that pay the taxes for that versus outsiders. The sober living issue for me in this community is an issue. Everyone needs help. Everyone should get the help that they need. A friend of mine bought a house over on Cinnamon about 2 months after his first son was born. He had 2 overdoses right next door. He had no clue that it was a sober living facility right next door to him. What does that do to his property value? I remember when my wife and I were first looking at a house from across from St. Clair, and luckily the realtor said, the house right next door, that's an extended stay sober living home, and thank goodness we didn't buy that house. But I think that needs to be somehow made public knowledge to the community where these places are. Somehow, I know you can't stop them. You have the Disabilities Act. There's so much to protect them, which is their right, but there has to be a way with the homeowner that's renting these places, the facilities to these people, to have some regulations on them. That's just the beginning of my top 5 of what I'd like to try to accomplish. I'm sure there's much more I'm going to learn as I go along here if elected, just as Susan did in her first run. But a lot can be done, and I'm willing to put in the hard work to make that happen. Thank you.
David Norris, what will you do for the village?
What's that? What would you do for the village? What would I do for the village?
What more would you do for
What
the village?
more? Well, I'm going to go through a few questions that I think are, that you sent to us, actually. What are the biggest issues facing the village? Always what has to be at the top of our list is public safety. That has to be a part of every decision we make. It's a challenge. We have a great police department. We're number 4 in the state right now in terms of safest cities, but it's a challenge from the elements coming from outside our village, or you can talk to our police chief, and it's a tough situation that he fights every day. So that needs to be at the top of our list of biggest issues. Budget is always needs to be on that at the top of that list. We've done a really good job with our budget. We have great reserves, but it's going to continue to be a challenge. And as you know, we're built out. We can't grow any further. We can't add new properties. So the challenge is finding the revenue sources, because the expenses continue to go up. So budget's always going to be a big issue. Redevelopment is huge for us. Again, like I said, there's no new property, so what's key for our improving our income stream is the redevelopment that is happening now and will happen. So it's a big issue to make sure that we're putting the rules in place so that the redevelopment is the proper redevelopment, and we maintain our wonderful small-town atmosphere that we all love. Business, growing the business and community, that's a big challenge. I think that is one of our biggest challenges right now. You see all of the for lease signs along US 1 and North Lake, and businesses are hurting because of COVID, obviously, right now, but they were kind of hurting before, and that's a huge issue that we need to be better in trying to come up with the ways to help our business community, get the input from the business community so we can make rules, change rules to help them thrive. Hot topic in the community, as has already been stated, is the US 1. What's going to happen there? Where that issue arose was we did a master plan 3 years ago, which was a huge accomplishment. That's kind of like a roadmap of how to proceed into the next 50, 60 years for the village. Part of that, the consultants that we had suggested that we consider lane reduction, and that's what we're doing. We're considering it. No decisions have been made, contrary to what you may have heard. I agree that we need the resident input. We need much more resident input. We voted about putting it out for a referendum. We decided not to do it because we don't have all of the information yet. So until we get all of the information, the residents have all of the information, it shouldn't go to referendum, and obviously we can't make any decision on what to do there. So what are positive things about the village? There's so many positive things. Public safety is great. Our parks, I think, are incredible. It's a continuing job to keep them incredible. And as Colby said, in Lakeside, we've lost some of the shade. We have to continue to monitor those, maintain those parks, and keep and make sure that they are as great as they have been in the past. The country club is incredible, like I said before, but I really think the best thing about the village is the people and the small town atmosphere. We really are like Mayberry, and when we talk amongst ourselves, we love that. Everybody loves that, and that's the key to going forward, and that's the issue, and the trick is to how do we do all of these things deal with all of the stuff from outside of the village and still maintain that small town feel that we've been so successful doing. And I think that's key to what I want to continue to strive to accomplish if I'm reelected. Thank you.
Mr. Fracking?
I'd like to go back just for a few minutes about the US 1. I want to make it clear that I don't have a position on that. My problem with the council is that they seem to play their cards too close to their chest. I want them to come out of hiding, and I want them to tell and sell this thing. If it's really a good idea, I think our people will go for it. But trust the people. Trust the people. Inform them of what it is going to be. Now, I've heard here tonight no decisions have been made. Well, there were 4 options that were given. They have chosen one option. They've chosen that already. Don't buy this that, we haven't made any decisions. They have made a decision. It's the one option, and that it includes lane reduction. There were other options that did not have any lane reduction that we never heard about. So that's the thing that really concerns me. Trust the people. Tell the people what it is. Let them see it. Answer the problems or the questions, the objections that people have. But get it out in the sunshine. This should be a village-wide decision. And I don't know anybody that lives in this village that wants to have a village that's not at the top of the list. But you got to trust them. You have to tell them. The second thing is on term limits, and I want to come back to that because, David, I don't want this to be a personal thing. David has served this community well. He's been on that council, has been faithful, and I thank you for that, David. I really do. The point that I'm trying to make is that I do think 24 years is quite a while. I just think we need some new blood. We need some other experiences. In this whole baseball game called politics, some other people might like to come to bat. And I think that we've got a lot of talent out there. Now, Ms. Pearman, I was going by the questions that you gave, and you asked what have I done to volunteer in the village. Well, I coached Little League Baseball with Harold Shands, and that should have been made into a movie. That was really something else. I helped to provide a 15-passenger van for the police, Explorer Scouts. I worked on the campaigns of Tom and Marion Lewis. I was chaplain for the Sheriff's Department for Palm Beach Shores and also for North Palm Beach. I rode with an officer by the name of Jimmy, and you just don't know what that's like until you have him stop a car and tell you, cover me, and there's a .38 under your seat. I know the police department, and I know the firefighters, and I know what they're facing. The most positive thing about the village is the people. Wonderful, gifted, talented, caring people. Tremendous resource for this village, and I think we ought to find ways to tap that talent. The location, vacation land, 12 months a year we are here. We're a recreational village. Even our symbol for the village is what? A boat wheel, huh? This is heaven. You can't get any closer to heaven than living in North Palm. The most important improvement in the village, the one I did not hit on, is communication. You ought not have to go to a website and dig through all the legalese to find out what's going on in this village and what's coming up in this village. I just want to have common English that everybody can understand in the village newsletter that says this is what we've done, this is what's coming up. We solicit your input and welcome the residents to come and speak to that. Together we can accomplish a lot of great things. There's an intangible element too that I want to address, and that is the lights are going out all over America tonight. People are feeling a huge disconnect between them and the basic institutions that have guided our society for years. The people don't believe they're being heard, they're not being represented, there are fundamental issues of fairness, transparency. There's distrust that abounds. What are they going to do? Where are they? What's going on? What's happening? Frustration is rampant. And I'm one of those who are among that number. And along with many others, I'm seeking fresh air, a new beginning, a new spirit, a camaraderie that can bring us together. This is a wonderful village, but you know we need to work together. We need to help each other. Or, as Martin Luther King says, we're going to kill ourselves. But we need a new attitude. We need a new beginning, a fresh start. And that's what I want to bring. What would I do? I will close the gap between the people and the council. I would like to personally set an example in doing that. I'd like to have regional town halls in areas where there's no representation on the council. And I would like to think even in terms of single-member districts, so that we have representation on the council from everybody in the village, not just interested parties that want to step up and run. Thank you very much.
Now we get to the interesting part, your questions. And I think we only have just a few minutes left, but let me, some of the questions are for individuals and some are for two or one, okay? So I'll start with this one I thought was kind of interesting. It says, how many council meetings have you attended last year? Does anybody want to answer that?
Is that for all of us?
What's up, Carl?
A lot of them.
A lot?
Absolutely.
David, you probably,
I may have missed one.
Online? Yeah, whatever we can be on.
okay, all right. Yeah. All right. All right. The question was, how many council meetings have they attended last year? And some have done it online. They didn't have to go to the council meeting to be at a council meeting, so that was interesting. I think we're just going to have to say, raise your hand if you want to come up and answer, okay? How do you feel about term limits?
You want me to go?
Go.
Obviously, that's directed at me. Yeah. Obviously, I don't believe in term limits at the local level. I mean, at the local level, we see each other all the time. We're around the neighborhood all the time. You have a lot more power with your vote. I think at the local level, I do think term limits should be considered up in Washington, but that's a different issue. But locally, don't believe in them. I think that the voters, as my opponent has said, the residents of North Palm Beach are very, very smart, very wise, and they can create the term limits by voting somebody out. And so I don't believe in them. I'm very eager to continue. I'm enthusiastic. Hopefully you can tell that. I'm not a very emotional person, but I think I do show how much I love the village, and I want to continue to serve the village, and I think there's work to be done. I think the village is great. I kind of got the impression from Reverend Perking that New Beginning is sounding like the village isn't good. The village is great. In my opinion, the village is great. It's always room for improvement, and that's what I would strive to continue to do. We've improved over my tenure quite a bit, and I think we can continue to improve. But term limits, I'd say no to.
Okay.
It is interesting that according to the national statistics, 83% of people are in favor of term limits. And it's coming from the Congress. You know, we actually have some people in both the Senate and the House that are promoting term limits. 83% of the U.S. people, and I think you would agree today, when you look at our Congress, are in favor of term limits.
Mr. Franking, while you're up there, there is a question that I will just go ahead and ask you this. RVs, concerning RVs. Why are you creating an issue that seems to have been resolved?
Well, it was not really solved. People really don't know the story about the RVs, and someday, if you want to hear about it, I'll tell you the whole story. And it's not a happy one. It's not a good one. And the council thought they really had dealt with this effectively. They didn't. They just kicked the can down the road, and they're going to have more problems coming. They voted, and I don't know if I want to go into all this right now, but I can just tell you, they didn't solve anything. They insulted the RV community, if I can be frank about it, because we were on track to try to put a workable, practical code in effect. Now, you know, there are people out there telling you that I want to have Greyhound buses on all the driveways around here. You know, that's a bunch of malarkey. We were talking about RVs that are sitting on the side of your home behind a village-approved gate and fence, period, along with a hedge. And I was working with Darrell Aubrey to get a workable, practical code. And in the end, what I got was, let's get rid of Firking and all of those people out there. Actually, let's just get the RVers out of the village. That really was the intent. Because what they said was, and this is what started it all, when I got a letter, certified letter, that said you're in violation of the code, and I called down to the code department and I said, what's my violation? They said, well, we can see your RV. I said, well, you know, I could hide a beer from my dad and a pack of cigarettes from my mother, but there's no way I can hide a 10-foot by 30 Airstream. Well, you need to do it, or you need to get it out. Now, folks, that was the worst experience I've ever had in my life. I've worked with a lot of people, and I've been under a lot of pressure, but I've never had the meanness, the ugliness that was behind that. It was terrible. And the solution was this. They drew an arbitrary date of November the 12th, 2020. And anybody who had an RV in the village at that time, they were going to find a way to make it work. You had to jump through some hoops and everything else. But now listen to this, after November 12th, 2020, anybody that comes in this village is required to have no bigger RV than 10 foot by 30 foot. No exceptions, no appeals, nothing. And they notified the real estate people to that effect. Now, if that's not an HOA, you tell me what it is. I found that to be very, very insulting. After all the work that we had put into it, all we wanted was a practical, workable code. The RVers in this community want to abide by the law. We had some RVers that did not abide by the law. They were poor representatives.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Briggs, you have something you would like to say? All right, clarification.
I just wanted to be clear that the realtors were not notified to enforce the code. The realtors asked the village for a one-page sheet of things that they needed to know about the village, and they specifically asked what the code was for the boat and RV. So that did not generate from us. That actually came from realtors asking because they wanted to know so that they could advertise the properties properly, and it actually encompasses a number of things. So I just wanted to be clear that it was not an HOA attempt, it was actually a request by local realtors for that information so that they could represent the Village of North Palm Beach appropriately, and the boat and RV is a very small portion of it. Thank you.
All right, David?
I just want to add another clarification. These rules have been on the books for a long, long time. So nobody should be getting the impression that we're all of a sudden putting these restrictions on and we didn't have them before. We had them before, okay? So what we've done over the last 5 or 6 years, we've revisited them several times because people have come up to the council to say they're not working. I mean, a lot of them want to allow larger, but there were a lot of provisions that weren't worded right, and we worked on that, and we thought we did it. The next year, we learned we still needed to make some tweaks. We made some tweaks. We went through it 3 or 4 times with incredible community input, with an ad hoc committee that gave us their thoughts, and that's what we were doing. We were taking existing restrictions and trying to make them better, not more restrictive. And if you go back through the history and look at where we are now versus where we were 5 years ago, you'll see that they're less restrictive than they were back then.
Excuse me, Mr. Briggs would like to speak.
I was going to say let my elder go first. Your elder? No, my elder, right? For one, I don't want to have to...
No.
What? My property value, it shouldn't be limited on the sale, of who can buy it. There is now, if I'm correct, you can fill out a form if the house is sold and go back in. Is that correct? And ask for permission, I do believe. You can go back in. If someone buys my house, they can go back in, fill out the form, and it goes with the committee, correct? With the new ordinance that was just passed?
Sorry.
If someone buys my house, they can fill out the form if they can have an RV or not, right? That was the way the new commission, I thought, with what you guys just passed. No, all right, so, okay. Okay, the way I read the code was that if I sell my house, they can go in and ask for permission to have an RV, 10 by 30, whatever. But they also have to send a certified letter to all of their neighbors. Well, what if the neighbor doesn't like you and they show up to the meeting and say, well, it affects my life. I can't have that there. It affects my life. The same people that are sitting there now are going to deny that. So if someone buys a house, they can't have it. So what do? Do they have to file the paperwork first and get permission? I mean, it makes no sense. It's my property rights. It's not affecting anyone. Let it sit.
Okay, Mr. Briggs, while you're still there, are you? One question says, are you in favor of changing an ordinance to allow 100 feet plus yachts?
All right, well, this is directed strictly at my boss. Again, I'm not running for Mr. Bizzuto. I'm running for myself. I don't know if the ordinance has about a restriction right now, to my knowledge, on a length or a height. Are you going to restrict the height of a house? I mean, that's not for me to say. That's up to the residents of the village. If the village residents want to come out and vote on a restriction like that, that's up to them. That's not up to 5 people. And if that was to come up and it was to do with one person, I would have to recuse myself. I would have no game in it. And again, I am not running for Mr. Bizzuto.
Okay, thank you. We're fast running out of time. I think we have, but I still want to ask this last 1 or 2 more questions, if that's all right with everybody. Yes. This one is about the country club. When the new country club was approved to move forward, was the projection that it would be physically self-sufficient? So that would be a
Fiscally self-sufficient.
Mr. Norris
Yeah,
question.
the projections would be that it would ultimately be self-sufficient. The way the country club was designed, it was to be more than just a country club, and it was a community facility. So a lot of the improvements were designed for community participation or community activities, as opposed to just golf, tennis, and pool. So there is a intended split of the expenses, an allocation between the general fund and the enterprise fund. Based upon that split, the projections were that we would ultimately reach a point where the income was very good and covered all of the expenses. Obviously, as soon as the clubhouse opened, COVID hit, so we still don't have a good feel for where the numbers will be, but golf is booming, tennis is doing great, the pool is always active, and I think even the restaurant is doing very well. So I think the numbers are all going the right way. We just need to get through this COVID crisis, and then we can see exactly where it's going to end up. But yes, the projections were great and positive, and it projected that we were going to be a big success.
And second part to that, do the citizens of North Palm Beach currently finance any shortfalls
Any shortfalls?
of the club?
Well, I don't know if we've had any shortfalls. Again, part of the expenses are allocated to the general fund, which the general fund is where the tax dollars are received and used. So, yes, the tax dollars there are tax dollars that go to pay for that facility, based upon that allocation that I referred to.
Thank you. Now, we are ready to close, so I'd like for each one of you to think one sentence, the reason they should vote for you, okay? And I'll call you up in just a minute. But I do want to tell you, somebody says, we have lived here for 25 years. We moved here because we like North Palm Beach. Maybe I should just stop there. It says, why should we change anything? P.S. Property values go up. Services are great. Country Club is fantastic. Why change? And let's see your parting comments why they should vote for you. All right, we'll start at the other end. And one sentence why they should vote for you.
I didn't really hear what you were at, the acoustics of that. What did you want us to do?
Think of one sentence to convince the people here that they should vote for you. One sentence.
I have huge experience.
Here, come here. Mike.
I have huge experience in businesses and as chairman of the board of major social service agencies, and I am well equipped and well prepared to represent all of the people of this village and would ask for your vote. Give me a chance.
Thank you. Thank you. John Bracken. Okay, David? Or Mr. Norris?
Yes, you should vote for me because I'm going to represent everybody in the village, not just a certain group of people that are angry about one or two rules, and because the village is great, and I want to do everything I can to keep it that way and make it even better.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Briggs?
My slogan says, "A voice for all. The seat is not mine, it's yours," and that's the way I will vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Bickle?
Well, I've given 10 years of my life to the village, both on Planning Commission and on council. But what matters to me the most are those random little comments you see on Nextdoor. You know, Susan Bickle helped us with our sidewalks. Susan Bickle helped us with our drainage. Susan Bickle responded to my call. That's why you should vote for me. I'm the council member who gets back to every single person, whether they want to yell at me or ask for my help, I'm there. And I hope to have the opportunity to continue to do that. Thank you.
There you have your choices, ladies and gentlemen. Before we leave, let's have the AAUW people to stand. AAUW. Come on, Jana. All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you, residents of North Palm Beach. You have the best place to live under the sun. Thank you. Bye-bye.